Hi, welcome back to ODE YouTube channel. Today I'm going for another ink review. I know I don't do a lot of these, but sometimes I think it's good to show you some of the inks I have in my collection. I'm trying not to increase too much my ink collection, but I'm going over through some of the inks I already have. So today I'm going to show you the Montblanc Oyster Grey. This is a grey ink that is currently in the Montblanc lineup, but is going to be discontinued, or it was just recently, I'm not sure. I got to notice it would be discontinued, so I thought it is a good time to make the review and then to give away the rest of the bottle to a friend that likes the ink. I don't like it that much because I don't enjoy grey inks. I bought it some time ago when I was experimenting more colors than I do now. So it comes inside this regular box, the 60 milliliter box of Montblanc. It is a greyish box. You take this out. You have a sturdy cardboard with a fabric thingy to pull it out like it was a drawer. Then you have some instructions there. It is lined with this kind of a foam, and here you have the bottle. It has the typical shoe shape. That this is the current version of this shoe shaped bottle. There was an older one, and I bought this some time ago. So this was made in November 2014, and I didn't use that much because it's not one of my favorite inks. It has this very nice big lid, and this is it. About these bottles, these are nice because when the volume of ink is low, you can do it like this, and you will always have a smaller inkwell where you can go with your nib and draw up the ink into your pen. The ink bottle is that one. Let me show you the swatch. The swatch of this ink is this one. You can see that this ink is a grey ink that has some darker tones, and it has, I would say, a warmish, a warm grey, a warm brownish tone. That was what I was going to say. This ink has something that I don't really like that much in inks, and I didn't understand that until quite recently, is that where the ink is, where I spread the ink and there is less ink, it is almost invisible, and I don't like that kind of color variation. But if you like color variation within your writing, that is a good ink. Now let me show you. I have some inks for comparison. I don't have many grey inks, but I have here the Herbin Greenouage, which is grey, cloudy grey or cloud grey. It is a much cooler toned and lighter kind of grey. This looks more like a pencil writing. This not so much, at least in the swatch. I also have here for comparison the ink from the Diamine or Diamine Inkvent calendar, the number 3 ink, which was called the Snowstorm, that has some glitter. So it's not the same ink, but it's quite similar to the Greenouage from Herbin, and the darker parts are more similar with these medium parts of the Montblanc Oyster Grey. Then I want to show it next to the Parker Quink Black, which is a nice black for me, but it's not that dark. So you have some greyish tones, but you can see they are quite different. I don't know if it shows up that much in camera, but the lightest part on Black Parker is this, and the lightest part here is this one. Through this lighter part, even in the medium part, you can see the lines the squares of the paper here on the Parker, you cannot, and I like that kind of property. I also want to show you the swatch of another ink. It's not a grey ink, it is the Swan Illusion Plume from Montblanc, which is an ink that I didn't like and I gave it away, the rest of it. And I didn't like this ink, and why not? It is a brownish ink, so I should like, but it has the same kind of almost transparent when it is a very thin layer, so I don't like it that much. Now, let's go for the chromatography, and when you look at this ink, it is quite fun to see that the chromatography is kind of washed out grey, and then you have a pink zone, and then a bright green part, which is quite interesting. I was not expecting to see a green part in this. I would say I would have expected more of a brownish or a yellowish part of this, but this may be the brownish part, the mixture of the pink or reddish with green gives us kind of a brown. And you can see there is some water resistance there, because you can perfectly see the base where the baseline where the chromatography went up from. Now I will show you the pen that I chose. It is this nicely colored, beautiful material, Jinhao Centennial, and I chose this Jinhao Centennial because it has a fude nib. It's my only fude nib, and I thought it would be an interesting thing because I started, in the last review I made, I started to use different nib widths to give you some more variation of line for you to see how the ink behaves in different situations, not just with the fine nib that I usually use. And I thought this would be a great way, at least for this ink that I don't enjoy that much, to use it with only one pen, and I can have several writing thicknesses with just one pen. And I thought that was a good way not to fill too many pens with ink that I do not enjoy. So let's see how it is on paper. And the first paper, as usual, is the Moleskine paper. And we have here the little swatch, and you can see the writing beneath. This was ripped from a Moleskine planner, so you can see there is written Tuesday. The covering of this ink is not that much. If you use a very broad nib, that's when you use the thicker part of the fude nib, you will find a very dark grey. You can see it's not black, but it's close to it. If you use this nib on the reverse side, you will see a very light, very faint line. You can read it, but it's not that pleasant. When you use with, I would call this like a fine or an extra fine. This is a medium, and I would say this is a double broad nib. So when you go up with the kind of nib that you are using, you will see lots of shading that you don't see that much on the first writing. And there are no other properties like sheening or anything besides the color variation. About the bleeding, there is some bleed through just on the parts where I wrote with the thicker line, which is not bad for a Moleskine paper, which are usually very problematic. Then I have here the Navigator copy paper, and you will see that the kind of writing experience is very similar. It looks a little bit darker on this paper than on this cream colored paper. It looks darker on the white paper. I don't know if it's really darker or if it's just the contrast that is bigger. Here you have less bleed through than on the moleskin paper, but still you have some where you lay down more ink in one place. And then we go to the Oxford optic paper, and on this Oxford optic paper you can see some more line variation, and because this paper is more coated and less absorbent, you'll see that it never gets as dark as on the other two papers. It is more grayish here, and you see more color variation between your writing. You will not see a lot when you're writing with the reverse side of the nib. It's still very fine. It is even finer than on this paper, and it is easy to understand because here it will not absorb so much ink as here, and so it will be more faint. But then you have much more line variation here on the medium than on this one, and then lots of it on the broader part. And on the underside in this paper there is no bleed through, even in the places where you put more ink. And finally, let's go for the Rhodia paper. This is the paper where I made the swatch, so it isn't a new thing for this review, but you will see that we have some color variation throughout the line, very similar, maybe a little darker than on the Oxford paper. And I did the drying test time where I write and then after some seconds I smear it with my finger, and it takes around 20 seconds, so not bad to dry. Sometimes I prefer inks that dry a little faster, but that's not bad. I was writing these with the nib in this position, like in vertical, so I would say it was like a medium line. Then I made these swirls and I applied some drops of water, and you can see that it smeared quite a lot where I put this, but you can see the original line, and it is not waterproof, but I would say it is water resistant. You can read what you put inside. It is not beautiful anymore, but you can read it. And let's go just for the final phrase, and I will use this like medium line and the quick brown fox. I will write the jumps in reverse. Jumps over the lazy dog. So please tell me if this kind of nib is nice for these reviews. I think it is. So we have an ink that is quite well behaved, I would say. It is good because it dries relatively easily or quickly. It is quite water resistant. It has some nice shading. However, I don't like that much inks that shade a lot and that do not cover well the lines that are beneath. So this is just a personal preference. This ink really is not for me. I think any gray ink is really for me, but it is always interesting to try and to show and to share with you. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope this was useful, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye!